I'm going to call the General Committee meeting to order for May the 28th. It's our 7 p.m. meeting. We're 7:09. I apologize. We're just a couple of minutes behind or a few minutes behind at this point. I would like to welcome our student mayors. We have Lincoln Holland representing Urban Village Academy, and we have Stroud McGregor representing St. Monica's Catholic School to tonight's general meeting. So welcome, your worships. Stroud, tonight I went to the fun night at St. Monica's, and I had two students walk up to me and say, "Do you know Stroud McGregor?" So you're famous. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. For the consent items, I will read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of General Committee may ask that an item be held to discuss it further. If an item isn't held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at General Committee, and the recommended motions will go forward to the next City Council meeting for consideration. Before we step into those items, we're going to, actually, we will go through those and then we'll come back to presentations. The first item is from the Community Safety Committee. So, Councillor Morales, can you give us an update before we go over that item?
Absolutely, Mayor Nuttall. So we met on May the 7th in the council chambers. It was a good meeting to understand the implications of growth and also understand the implications of precedent, while not being a formal consideration, can often become an unintended consequence in terms of parking restrictions. So we had a very specific example on Greer Street. Get to see Warden End residents coming out and speaking to the issues that affect them. It ended up being referred to the parking committee, ad hoc committee that was started. And then we also had a presentation about traffic calming policy by a consultant, and we just adopted adopted reports from the Community Safety Wellbeing Advisory Committee as well.
Got to turn my microphone on. Thank you for the update. And so we have CSC 1. That's the motion you just stated, was to have the Parking Advisory Committee take a look at the request. Are there any holds on that, or can it be approved on consent? And it looks like approved on consent. So we're now going to do the same for infrastructure. So I'm going to go to Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Nuttall, the Infrastructure and Community Investment Committee met on Wednesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. All members of the committee were present. We had one open delegation that evening from the Executive Director of Carnival Barrie, seeking financial support for the event that happens in August 30th and 31st. We also received two presentations that evening. The first presentation was from the Senior Asset Management Plan Program Coordinator, who provided a very robust presentation in regards to asset management and asset management planning. The second presentation was from the Operation Roads and Fleet Department concerning the use of salt management update. We received a number of reports that evening, reports of the Arts Advisory, the Active Transportation, the Youth Council, and the Communities in Bloom. And finally, there were two recommendations coming from that meeting that evening. One was in regards to the cultural plan update, and that's on the agenda tonight, referring it back to staff in economic and creative development. And the second recommendation was with regards to the public art strategy that we'll talk about this evening as well.
Thank you, Councillor. And so we'll start with IC1, the culture plan update, as you just advised. And that is approved on consent. We're going to go to IC2, the public art strategy.
Hold, please.
That's held by Councillor Rietma. Now we're going to have the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee update from May the 20th. And there's a motion for that as well. The deadline for the approved, to be approved by council, is coming up for the 1st of July, I think, is the deadline. And so we're going to deal with this now, which is the City of Barrie's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. I'm going to actually move that so that we, if there's a need to hold it, you can do so after the presentation on the said item. And so I'm going to pretend we haven't gone through that at this point, so no need to hold or approve. The staff reports for the 2025 Asset Management Plan. It's approved. The zoning bylaw amendment for 830, 864, 894, 912 Lockhart Road in Ward 10. It's approved. 112 King Street, formerly 1 Holly Holm Farm Road, Ward 7. That's approved. DEV 019-25, confidential trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization consulting services, DEV 019-25. It's approved on consent. DEV 020-25, confidential trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization procurement services. It's approved on that's held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. DEV 021-2. Okay, members of committee, there's been a request to unhold 020, but to in fact hold 019. They both have the same verbiage, so I'm going to consider 19 held and 20 approved on consent. We'll now go to DEV 021-25, zoning bylaw amendment 127 and 131 Ardagh Road.
Hold, please.
It's held by Councillor Negussi. DEV 023-25. It's approved on consent. EMT 002-25. It's approved on consent. Just note that there's a surplus, operating surplus from 2024 for $5,121,197 that's going to reserve, along with some other allocations to reserve, as well as some items that were running deficits that needed to be evened out as well. LGL 003-25,
Hold, please.
held by Councillor Negussi. Okay, members of committee, we're now going to go to the presentations portion, and I'm going to call upon Carrie Warner of Avail Consulting to come to the podium to give the presentation. As soon as Carrie is complete the presentation, we'll move into the whether we need to hold or just approve on consent the update to the community safety and well-being report, so over to you, and thank you for joining us for General Committee this evening.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks to Council for the invitation. My name is Carrie Warner, and I'm the consultant that worked with a fabulous group of people, which is a committee of council, on the refresh of your community safety and well-being plan. If I forget to advance the slides, because I'm notoriously famous for getting so excited about what I'm talking about, I forget that you're not on the same slide as me, please just somebody put their hand up and I will be sure to advance the slide. So tonight we're going to take a few moments, 10 apparently, to look at a few things about the refresh of this plan. The importance and the rationale behind the planning, how the plan was informed, the focused areas of risk in the plan, and the strategies that are identified in the plan. Also, from there, how the plan will be actioned, monitored, and reported on, and then some next steps. See, already I'm behind. Okay. So why are we doing this type of planning? There's two reasons we're doing this type of planning. One, there's a legislative requirement to do this planning, and you can read that on the screen, and you can find that in the Community Safety and Policing Act. And really the role of the municipality is to convene the partners together to develop, prepare, and adopt the plan, and then support the implementation of it, publish the plan within 30 days of its adoption, and then every 4 years review and revise as appropriate as needed. And then to monitor, evaluate, and report on the progress and the impact of the plan. But the other reason that we're doing this is that if you look at the plan and you look at the areas of risk in the plan, these are very complex social challenges. You could do a whole plan on mental health and addiction. You could do a whole plan on housing and homelessness. When you combine them into one plan, it gets pretty gritty. And so when you look at the framework and you look at the bullseye target, they're asking us to work across 4 domains. So social development, so that's the really kind of upstream strategies, prevention, intervention, and critical or emergency response. And they lay out some expectations in the framework around what we're to be looking at when we're doing this planning. So intersectoral collaboration, information sharing, and that's not a bunch of people talking and commiserating about the challenges in society. That's really using data to inform strategy, sharing data, looking at emerging issues or crises or trends, and then the performance measurement piece of it. So really, the goal is to work across sectors to address issues early and improve outcomes for the residents in our community. So as I mentioned, under the oversight and the guidance of a very sophisticated group, many of whom are here either on council or Chair Ferguson is here behind me tonight, our approach included data and records review or document reviews, consultation and engagement, and then setting the strategies. So in the documentation and data review, we were looking at the previous plan, and I can tell you because I've done this across the province, I've done many plans, and everybody created really amazing, ambitious, wonderfully thought out plans right across the province, very well-intentioned, but when it came to the implementation piece, it was tough. It was really tough. These are not resourced plans. There's no money, put behind these plans. And so I think that what we're seeing across the province, and even people like myself, there's a few of us that kind of specialize in this, is that the next iteration of the plans were a lot leaner, very targeted, and we didn't let any strategies get out the door unless there was a lead agency, clear actions, and a way to measure it. And so I think you'll see that reflected in your plans that you reviewed tonight. And then looking at data, and I do want to talk a little bit about data, but I'm going to save it for another slide. Then the targeted engagement of key providers and groups. So some of these collaborative tables that exist in our community that address these areas of risk, like the Poverty Reduction Task Group, the Ontario Health Teams, the Child, Youth, and Family Services Coalition of Simcoe County. It's a bit of a mouthful. Every time they rename, they somehow make it a little longer. And then moving from there, we did online surveys with residents and providers. And then we had an in-person provider session or provider strategy setting session here in Barrie. That was a fantastic day. Some of you were in attendance. And then there was a county-wide provider strategies setting session. And I want to talk about the relationship between the Barrie strategies and the county strategies. So the focused areas of risk in the plan you see up there: housing and homelessness, mental health and addiction, and access to services, you could say supports and navigation. These appeared in your previous plan. We've called them out a little clearer in the refresh of the plan. And, they remain relevant. We know that, even post-COVID, these issues have just grown. The data tells us that, people tell us that, providers tell us that. We know that this is kind of burning in our communities. So from there, moving into the strategy setting session, I just want to take a few moments on this slide, and then I'm going to jump to the next one that kind of details this slide out a little bit more. So the plan clearly lays out strategies, very, very specific strategies and county-wide strategies. So the Barrie specific strategies are strategies that at this point we will only see happening in Barrie with Barrie partners, Barrie residents, Barrie services. The county-wide strategies doesn't mean that they're necessarily all being led by the county. It means that they are going to appear in each of the 6 CSWB plans that are being refreshed across the county. So Barrie has a plan, and then the rest of the county is kind of divided up into subregions following the natural boundaries of like OPP detachment or police detachment. So even though they're county-wide strategies and they appear in each of the plans, they're going to have local application. So how it looks in Barrie might be the same strategy, but it might look very different in Orillia and area, because you have different providers, different partners, different needs. So these are the same strategies. They're just detailed out with a lead agency. And just highlighting some, I'm not going to read through the actions because I don't have that long. I'd love to get right into it because I'm pretty excited about this kind of work, but I'll keep it clean and tight tonight. So under a county-wide strategy around strengthening pathways out of homelessness, that is actually being led by the County of Simcoe, and they're really focusing on prevention supports and reduction strategies. And if you look in the plan and you read the write-up of that, you'll see there's a safety component of that too, a safety component from people who are experiencing homelessness, real safety, safety around, violence that they're experiencing on the streets or in shelters or in warming centers. And then there's the safety of people who are not experiencing homelessness, but they feel unsafe in community. And that certainly came through in the surveys that we see, and also even some of the other data that we looked at. Another housing strategy that is Barrie specific is really around, convening this collaborative table, and that's really focusing on increasing the supply of housing options for minimal income earners. So hesitant to say affordable housing or deeply affordable housing because those, even to me, those definitions get a little bit blurry. So I think the focus and the language that was really kind of rang through was the minimal income earners. The next strategy is under mental health and addictions, and that is a county-wide strategy, but we'll have local application in Barrie, and that's really around focusing on transitional age youth. So that's youth age 12 to 25, and better connecting the providers and services to reduce gaps and improve outcomes for that population. The next mental health strategy is a Barrie-specific strategy. It's being led by the Barrie Area Ontario Health Team, and that's really at looking at the alignment at the provider level for those that are providers that are offering mental health and addiction outreach services here in Barrie. The next strategy, this one could fall under housing and homelessness, it could fall under access, it could fall under mental health and addictions. A lot of them could fall under different categories, and that just speaks to the interconnected needs of the resident population that are struggling with some of these social issues. Is Barrie Cares, and that's looking at the building, the campus of care. So that's taking a kind of a tri-sector approach to address some of the kind of the burning needs around the homeless population here in Barrie. The next is led by the police, and that is an existing strategy. That led by the police, and that's the creation of the social service community campus. So that's really kind of a co-location uniting of partners around some of those determinants of health and some social conditions that could lead to justice involvement. So that's a kind of a physical strategy, a co-location of these supports and services. And then the last one, the County of Simcoe, that is a data strategy. And so that data approach is really kind of rang through loud and true in the first iteration of these plans, that we didn't do a great job kind of provincially around the data, because people collect data and they have great data, but even among your mental health providers, they're not all using the same system, so it's not an apples to apples. So we need to get a little clearer on how we're kind of tracking and trending the health of the population around some of these indicators around community safety and our well-being. So how this plan will be actioned, monitored, and reported on. So as I mentioned, that there is a lead agency for each of the strategies, and it will be their role or their job to coordinate activities and track progress and then report the progress on to the most appropriate committees. And in the first year, what that's going to look like is, they're probably going to clarify their roles. Some of these strategies are up and live, because really what you want to do is you want to kind of build on the momentum of existing strategies, scale, and spread if possible. And so some of them are underway, some of them are not underway. And asking them to identify clear performance metrics for themselves that they will be reporting on year over year. And that's how you will be able to know when you receive those reports if we're moving the needle in the right direction on the strategy. So I have here that it's anticipated that Council will receive progress reports annually, but that's really the determination of Council, is how often you want progress reports, and then communicating that back. Which brings me to the next part of kind of the responsibilities of Council with regards to this. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's really this has been tagged to municipalities, and so to ensure that there is some type of determination around membership composition to kind of keep this work moving forward. So having that subset or whoever that might be, I would say that as you're doing that, you want to reference the legislation on that, because there's some very clear, thou shalt have this, thou shalt have that. So there's some key partners that you're going to want to have, but making sure that that is determined fairly soon, because this work for many of these strategies is already under the way, and we'll be looking at from July 1st on how they convene, and then they will want to know who they're reporting back to. So we'll want to set a bit of a structure in place for that. So the proposed next steps, so pending any edits from council tonight on the report that's been put forward, or the plan that's been put forward, that the plan be adopted on or before July 1st, 2025, and once it's adopted, that it be posted digitally within 30 days of adoption. And as I mentioned before, that the oversight group should be identified as soon as possible. Oh, see, I almost made it, thank you. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We'll open up for questions and go from there. If there's no questions, we'll go right into the holding or approving of the plan. I'm seeing no question. Oh, I've got one question from Councillor Hamilton.
Sorry, excuse me. Thank you, and through you, Mayor Nettle, thank you for the presentation. It's great to hear, and great to hear this coming together. I'm looking forward to actually enrolling and the work being done. Just in terms of the updates, so the annual updates, at what point then, or how is it determined or decided if we want more frequent? Like for me, annual is pretty lengthy. It would probably be more opportune to receive quarterly updates, but when does that decision get made and how does that get conveyed?
So we can actually ask for that to be increased in frequency. I think that there's a couple things. Number one is usually we probably have this going through our community safety committee, but because of the timelines that we're under right now, we wanted to just get it right through in case there were hiccups for all of council or all of committee. So that would be the first piece. Second piece is if we're looking for a written update, we can do that. The one thing I would just kind of be hesitant on about doing it too frequently is this is an unresourced thing, right? So if we want, the more frequent we want the update, the more resources we need to allocate, and if that's what committee wants, then we can do that. But we just need to recognize that that's a necessary thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not looking for weekly or monthly, but I think quarterly probably made more sense than annually. I'm just mindful of the last community report that none of us were even aware existed. There was no monitoring of it. There was a lot of work done that went into a report, a lot of collaboration, and nothing came of it. So I do not want to be in the same position in the next year or 2 years, so I want to avoid that. And sorry, if I have one more question just to ask, in terms of the governance structure and all the participating bodies, are there any residents involved in any aspect of this in terms of like input or?
Yes, certainly for the development of the plan, there was the online community survey, but I think going forward, I think the important piece of this going forward is what you do with the implementation time and the strategies. And so you're going to have these partners that are going to be leading these strategies. And I think it's incumbent on them they're the most connected to some of the people that are experiencing this. And so I think you want to have some diverse perspectives. And we had a conversation about this even, at the last meeting, I don't know if that was, I guess, last week, is not every voice is represented in the plan. And so, we've actually said that in the plan, that not every voice is represented, and we have to do a better job at, broadening that out and finding different methodology. So an online survey is fine, but you're getting a certain demographic. When it comes to the people that are most affected by the things that we're talking about in the plan, they're not the ones who are going to be completing online surveys. So I think that through the work of the lead agencies and their activities, I think that's an expectation that would be reasonable for whatever the convening group, the group that convenes to monitor this plan, to say is, I need you to be able to demonstrate how you've engaged people and getting their feedback. And so I think some of the next steps is to create some type of framework around reporting back, because you do not want a hodgepodge of reporting. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to accurately determine if you're moving things forward across all the strategies. So having some type of framework or some consistency, and then layering in some of the expectations that you're talking about now. Sorry, Mayor, I should have said through the mayor to the councillor. Just so quick to respond.
That's good.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. Very excellent response and just excellent presentation and the way you've explained things. So really, really appreciate the time and effort you put into this and to answering my question. Thank you. Well done.
I actually thought as this started, the presentation, and this would click for you. Like it's right up your alley, I don't know what the right word is, in terms of the things that you look for around the table, right? The data and KPIs and how, so it makes a lot of sense, and it's good to hear positive feedback from you on that, because I think that solidifies the work that the group's done and Carrie's done on it. I want to, before we proceed, I think there is an important piece here that we started to talk about inside the committee, and I think we should, you know, if you don't say it openly, then it probably just disappears, right? So I think that one of the difficulties we're having, whether it's with the police gaining data or our committee going out and trying to gain data, is that the response from demographics is pretty heavily weighted in a single area. And correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie, but it was heavily female.
84%, Mayor.
84%, and heavily white. And so, you know, that's not representative of the entire community. If you think about the makeup of our community, we need to find ways to be getting everybody's input into these types of things, because what we're identifying here is how to move forward and to allocate leads who will allocate resources to meet specific goals. And I think one thing that we could do with the Community Safety Committee, Councilor Morales, is try to bring others into the conversation that are not currently in the conversation. And part of this is it's incumbent on individuals getting involved, and part of this is it's incumbent on those of us who are in office to help get people involved. And so it hopefully we'll be able to have a cross-section that's more representative of the community as we go forward. I didn't see any other questions. Oh, Councilor Morales, yep.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. As an extension of your point there, Ms. James Reed, do we have flexibility with how we market this to engage more people, different types of people into the feedback? Here's what I mean by that. A couple years ago, Barrie Fire wanted better representation, so they marketed, they advertised, I'm sure the details are extensive, but two that stood out for me is they marketed to female candidates, and they marketed, I remember being like pleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh, they're actually posting it in the very extensive Filipino Facebook groups in town. Like, do you know someone who has studied this or has the NFPAs or was thinking about it? So they went aggressive. This was 2021, 2022. So I've noticed that kind of outreach even, so do we have flexibility in how we market this? Not only that, but also the language. Very respectful to, you didn't come up with the name, so I don't, respectfully stated, Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan is a great name that captures everything, but that doesn't trigger people's concerns. That's what we want to do, community safety improve and general well-being, general well-being. What might trigger an emotional response, and that's how marketing is effective when you get an emotional response is, gangs, it's crime, and there can also be a positive spin to it, like, do you have an idea on how to make Barrie safer? Share your idea on how you can make your community safer, right? So we got that when we got the funding from the Fed. So I guess my question to staff is, do you have flexibility in how you phrase it? Not in a sense to be negative, but I can just picture this if this was on a radio show host.
I'm just gonna step in, because I think that that's a conversation that needs to happen. But I think that's a conversation that needs to happen through your committee, in the sense that working with Ms. James Reed to bring in the folks and to have a strategy that brings the folks in. I'm not sure that your question, in fact, I'm sure that your question doesn't meet what was proposed here for tonight. You're talking about going forward. what we have the presentation on the floor right now is what was done.
Fair enough. I was just inspired by your comment.
No,
So we're both in the
and
same
you're
boat.
100% right.
We'll both get the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
just
okay,
think
that's a
it's-
conversation
yeah.
for a later time. But yeah, it's about engagement.
100%. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Harris?
Thank you, Manette, and I appreciate the presentation. Ms. Warner, I do like your approach as far as this, making this meaningful and manageable, because you're right that something of this scope can easily be a great document that sits on a shelf and doesn't get, especially with no resources, doesn't get activated. I was kind of wondering as far as enablers, where there was funding, and maybe this is for the committee members or staff, we had the Brighter Futures grant that was provided to municipalities last two fiscals, and I'm hopeful, maybe I'm making the answer my question, but are there elements, if we get funding opportunities like the Brighter Futures, do we see that as being able to be activated, to advance efforts in this community safety and well-being plan?
I'll put that through to our CAO. I believe that we made some amendments on how we dealt with funding from things like Brighter Futures. I believe it's actually a committee of council that deals with that.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, that's correct.
So the answer is yes. It'll be up to the Community Safety Committee.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just quickly, if I didn't see it, I apologize, it was there. I wondered about, and you mentioned about who had participated. Did we get much or youth, young people? I think about the future of Barrie and community safety well-being, even for those of us who are part of the Barrie Youth Council, which is new. I was surprised how much concern they had with safety at school. I was shocked, Mayor. I mean, like going to the bathroom is like taking a risk at a high school in Barrie. I was just shocked unanimously around the room. So, just wondered about what that opportunity was or feedback from youth in this plan.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Harris. I can completely agree, and I can appreciate your comments. Youth are tricky from a consultation standpoint because there's a consent piece. And so when you look at some of these strategies, you look at the mental health strategies, you look at even the homelessness strategies, knowing that we have some very vibrant partners and providers in the community, Youth Haven, you're looking at Transitional Age Youth Network. I'm confident that through the work of the implementation piece, that the youth will be engaged. That's a critical piece, because otherwise we're planning independent of their needs. We can speculate what their needs are, but you're right. I have a 15-year-old son. He comes home and tells me about what he finds in exactly the bathrooms at high school, and I'm alarmed. So there is, and if you look at the data in the plan, I can't remember, it's on the data page, and it's talking about the school climate survey, or the well-being climate survey. I don't think I'm getting that right, but it's really around like a dropping percentages of people feeling like they can express themselves or feeling safe in schools. And so when you look at the groups that inform this plan, and even beyond at the county level, we know that this is something, I have confidence that they are going to be engaging the youth. That's an expectation. I also am doing the rest of the plans for the rest of the county, and I know that there is going to be a small pocket of money earmarked for some of that very targeted engagement. I'm not suggesting that Barrie do that. I'm just saying that I think that there's ways to achieve exactly what you're suggesting, and I think it's absolutely critical.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I did see that as far as members of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, we do have school board representation there, so hopefully that's a really easy win to tap into the issues that are important to young people, and particularly schools and the safety at our schools, so thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up, because I think that it may be missed in there, is that there was actual data that was also provided to us on those studies from both the public and the Catholic school boards, and it's not the same questions in each place, so you can't take it as all the same information, but there was input that was then included, which then influenced the outcome of the plan going forward. And I think one of the interesting things about that is you would probably get a better cross-section of demographics out of that group than you do out of the survey at large. And, you know, I think that that's a piece that we need at Councillor Morales' Community Safety Committee to consider the difference between something that's mandatory or representative versus something that's surveyed. So we'll see where it goes from here. I'm actually, is anyone would like to hold the plan as a whole? Is there any amendments to the plan, or can I consider it approved at General Committee? Looks like we can consider it approved at General Committee. Thank you, Carrie, for your presentation. I would be remiss if I didn't also thank the Consulate Chair of our Police Services Board, who is also the chair of our Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Committee. Thank you for the work that you've put in. I'll let members of council know that every member of the committee wants to continue to be involved. So when there are those pieces of work coming forward, I think that you have a group of individuals who you can rely on. And I would also say that just on the whole plan, the idea that there's something now that we can look to with people that own each of these targets and goals that we can ask for updates from, I think is a really important piece. What you'll notice when you went through it is the City of Barrie is actually not responsible for much, because we're not responsible for social services. But what we are responsible for is making sure that the affordable housing piece gets through our city very quickly, and that we do everything we can to incent that affordable housing piece. So thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you, and congratulations on being one of the first municipalities to get your next plan approved.
Thank you.
You left out that.
Yeah, we'll double your pay, Mr. Chair, okay? Next time, we're doubling your pay. We're not paying him anything, for the record. Okay, so I'm now going to go to the first held item, which was the public art strategy, unless I missed one, which I don't think I did. And that was held by Councillor Riepma. So Councillor Riepma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll put the item on the floor as printed, and I have an amendment.
Go ahead.
My amendment has been circulated, and it is just the items in red. And essentially, what my amendment does is that it requests that our staff prepare an intake form for consideration at our next budget to move ahead 2 small items. And if you recall in the report, this is mentioned as alternative 2. And alternative 2 said we should go back to the 10%, and we should look at going from a part-time person in public art to a full-time person, and that we should do that in 27. And the alternative 2 said one of the alternatives would be to move that forward to do that in 26. And that's what I would like to do. I think that we should move it forward by a year, but I'm not sure that we're ready to commit to that at this point. And that's why I'm suggesting that we ask staff to produce an intake form so that we can discuss this item in the context of our overall budget next year, or in the late fall. So that's the essence of the amendment. So I'd be happy to discuss it further and ask for your support.
Thank you, Councillor. Over to DMT.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Through you to Ms. Slickler. In your report, and we had spoke earlier, there's a report that's going to come back to council about it, like a sustainable funding formula, and there was a couple other things just that we're waiting on some data. And also in your report, there was a reserve that, like, every time the Barrie Public Art funding, some was contributing to maintenance. The maintenance had pretty hefty reserve, which we've now allowed to kind of flow back into the operation, which will fund our temporary art pieces and stuff. Do you believe that you would have these reports and a sustainable funding options by the time we're deliberating the budget?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Deputy Mayor Thompson, we are targeting a report back of fall of 2025. So it hopefully would align with time for budget deliberations on the report back on the kinds of funding models that council could contemplate.
And, you know, we were just, sorry, Mayor Nuttall, through you, having the executive committee going through the report of, you know, some priorities and some big projects and stuff, with one of them being the arts. If this was the intake, like, I just think this is a little bit premature, and I spoke with Council Reitma earlier. I understand his intent. I sit on the Barrie Public Art Committee, and I know there was, you know, some conversation around it, but the work that committee did with your team, I think we come to a happy balance where we'll be able to evaluate, you know, are we going to need somebody to program the theater? And, you know, because you got to worry about the organizations. It's not just a bricks and mortar kind of thing. That I think we've got the cart in front of the horse here, where I don't think this is the right time. And to be honest too, you know, we're doing our best to maintain a 0% operating budget. And I think if I said to CAO Prowse, we're going to give you the resources of hiring a full-time staffer, would this be where the resources, and I'm not asking you to answer that, but I think I know the answer. There's a lot of things, and maybe even in your department, you know, the work you're doing, and with some of the economic challenges we have, I just think there's, you know, if we were going to look at a full-time staffer, there's probably a lot of department heads that could put an intake form. And look, I think the work that this committee's doing is excellent. And I think we've advanced the Barrie Public Art light years in a short time from when Stephanie actually took over this file. We've got some really good policies, and, you know, we did the Brighton Barrie stuff, we've done traffic cabinets, and then we did a really great exhibit with Seeds to Sow, which was a national thing. So I think, you know, I love the intentions, but I just can't support it right now, because I just think there's so many other things that need to come forward. And I understand that we could have this debate in the budget, but I think it also gives a little bit of a false sense of hope. So I appreciate the motion, but I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before I don't know if there's anyone else, before I go to anyone else, so while you weren't going to put to our CAO in that position, I will put the CAO in that position, and I will ask him if this is recommended or not. You're welcome, and I'll buy you a coffee tomorrow morning.
I was going to thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and I thought better of it. I think in answer to your question, Mayor Nuttall and Deputy Mayor Thompson, it's not a resource I would move forward. I think Ms. Schlichter has done an excellent job with significant financial constraints, putting together recommendations for council to move this and many programs forward. But I would be, you know, you walk a thin line when you tell council that we don't want that extra resource or half resource. But the reality is even if this amendment is passed here tonight, council won't have the totality of the information, even at budget time, to make that complex decision, because the teams are working together with that financial constraint already. So the intake forms, the requests, the needs will not advance because that direction has been given, and the teams are working diligently towards that. So it does make it complex when one item is pulled out and reintroduced as sort of a jump ball, because certainly happily, city staff will take more resources. We'll happily do that. But if I'm given an additional complement Mayor Nuttall, this is not where I would invest that money. And I don't want to speak for Ms. Schlichter, but I know in talking to her, I think that she would find other areas where she could invest that at this time.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. And are there any other questions or comments on this? I have just one point that I want to make, maybe 2 points actually. One is that there will be budget direction given to our public servants, which I give, and that will be given shortly after we finish our sitting, and it will come back as part of the budget for council to deliberate. The second piece is that the budget started the day after the last budget stopped, like the deliberation, I mean. And so, you know, we are now, call it, I think it's September, we're aiming to have the budget presented for 26. And so you're just short or just past 3 months away. Like there isn't a ton of time. The budget is actually going to be brought forward in the summer, if you will, because it ends on the 20th or 21st or whatever it is in September this year. And if it's not ready for then, it's not going to be considered. The other piece that I think is really important, and you heard this tonight at the executive committee, is that we have a full report coming on the Performing Arts Center, which is certainly going to have to incorporate public art around it, in it, and all those things. And there's going to be price tags that are going to have to be paid at this point, because they just have to be if we want to move forward with the Performing Arts Center. So, you know, my visioning is that there's probably going to be more money spent in 2026 on arts than is ever being spent and allocated in this city's history in the budget. And, you know I'll be fact checked on that, but if we're starting the building of a performing arts center that's going to cost $65-ish million, I'm guessing we haven't gotten near that at any point in our city's history. I remember the downtown theater, it was, what was it, 10, started at 6 and ended at 10 or something like that. And that was because we found out after we purchased the building that there'd been a fire in the building, and then you had to do a whole bunch of things that were not related to arts in order to make it work. So, you know, for me on the budget side, like I just don't think this is the time to pull the trigger. I think it is go through the budget. More money is being spent on arts in the next 2 years than anything else. And that's what we committed to. And out of that, there's going to be certainly more bricks and mortar, and there's going to be more conversations, but there's also going to be more identification of the need that we have both for public art as well as arts as a whole. So we can't do everything like all at once. And I think that we're actually being incredibly forward-thinking in the way that we're approaching the arts right now, investing in capacity after investing in the operations when we moved $25,000 over to the McLaren Arts Center to help with their operating budget that then didn't impact others as it could have out of our grants. So I won't be supporting the amendment. Staff didn't support this moving forward in this year. And I'm very wary of not being able, you know, I would be very weary if council was unable to say no to stakeholders in the community on requests for spend. Because if you can't say no, I think that's, I think it's a character flaw. And on this occasion, I think we should be saying no. So I'll leave it at that and call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment can vote now. And all those against, and it fails. On the main motion, without amendment, are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries, and we'll move on to, must have done good work. The Deputy Mayor just gave me a mint. We're going to move past DEV 019 because it's in camera. And we're going to go to DEV 021. And that is the zoning bylaw amendment for 127 and 131 Ardagh Road in Ward 6 in Barrie.
Thank you, Mayor Nadal. So I'm going to put the agenda on the floor as printed. I just have a quick question to Ms. Banfield or any staff. Ms. Banfield, is this development planned as condominium or freehold?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Nagusi, it is going to be a condominium.
Okay. If I may, Mayor Nadal. Ms. Banfield, you know we are in the process of changing our garbage system, and is the garage good enough to accommodate the new garbage cart, or where is the garbage storage location? I couldn't find on the.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Nagusi. So the Waste Management Department has advised that they will be able to do curbside collection for this development. So people will just put their garbage at the end of the street and municipal garbage collection will be available.
If I may, Mayor Nuttall. So will lane A be marked as no parking zone? You know, when you come from the Ardagh, there is lane A and B. So lane A would be a no parking zone. What's the plan for that?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Nagusi, that's correct. No parking will be along the lanes. Since everybody has private driveways and private garages, the expectation is they will park in their driveways, and there is no parking on the laneway.
If I may. Ms. Banfield, one of my other concern is the snow removal operation. You know, when you're coming from Ardagh Road to lane A and turning left or right on lane B, I believe that it seems like there is no sufficient space for snow storage. And given this limitation, where can we, you know, the snow be stored? Is there any recommendation for that?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Nagusi, the unit, while garbage collection is municipal, snow collection is going to be private. There are some spaces, if you do look on the site plan, there are some spaces along both along Ardagh Road and at the rear of the site that would be able to store some snow. And in addition, along the driveways, these units are 6.5 meter units, so there is space on the front yards as well to store some snow. As in any case, in some of these instances, if we do have a super high snow volume, as we see in some of these properties, they will have a snow lift. But generally speaking, there's definitely some space in the site plan design to accommodate snow.
Good. I just want to take the time to say thank you to Ms. Banfield and Riley. We had quite intensive discussion about this proposal. Thank you, Mayor Nadal.
Thank you, Councillor Nagusi. Are there any other questions or comments on the motion on the floor? I'm not seeing any. So all those in favor of the motion as it's written, and it's approved. Members of committee, we're going to go in camera after this in order to avoid coming back out and losing too many of our followers here. We're going to go into inquiries. Any inquiries?
I have none.
I'm seeing none. I asked my inquiries during executive announcements, Deputy Mayor. I'm seeing none. I have a few. I'm also fighting allergies a little bit here. I apologize. This week is National Accessibility Week, running from May the 25th to 31st. This year's theme is Breaking Barriers Together, Paving the Way for an Inclusive Future. For information, please visit barrie.ca. June is Seniors Month with special activities and events being hosted at Allendale and Parkview Senior Centers. For more information, please visit barrie.ca/recreation programs. I just want to give a quick plug to the seniors. To the seniors programs, also the seniors. I'm pointing over there. Yeah. If you guys want to go with me for lunch to the seniors programs, they're pretty awesome, and there's a really good group running over at Parkview and over at Allendale. We have incredible public servants who staff the place as well, places, and it's a really nice actual community to be part of. Make sure you check it out. There's on our website. There's all of the programs as just stated, and it's a great time to go. June is also Recreation and Parks Month, with communities across Ontario joining in on programs to raise awareness and foster greater engagement with local recreation spaces, activities, and parks. For information, you can visit barrie.ca. The City of Barrie recognizes June as Indigenous History Month, and June 21st is Indigenous Peoples Day. For more information, please visit barrie.ca/community events. A public information center session, regarding the Bayfield Street Transportation Improvements Project is taking place tomorrow evening at City Hall. This will be from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Again, this is regarding the Bayfield Street Transportation Improvements Project. You can also visit buildingbarrie.ca/Bayfield Study. I'm going to go to the circulation lists for May the 14th, May the 21st, May the 28th. Seeing none, then I'm going to ask for a motion to move into closed session from Councillor Rietma and seconded by Councillor Nixon. All those in favor? It carries. We'll convene in the Sir Robert Barrie Room at 8:09 p.m.